The Lawsons. Nearly everyone's been in a family portrait at some point. This photo looks quite run off the mill. Most of the family members look fairly wooden, though the father, standing at right, has a certain far-off look in his eye. His name was Charles Lawson, and he was already planning on murdering everyone around him. The Lawsons were a poor family, eking out a meager living as tobacco farmers in North Carolina. Their poverty must have weighed heavily on Charles' mind. Another factor in his disquiet was that he had incestuously impregnated his daughter, Marie, back row, second from left, and she'd started confiding that fact in the neighbors. A week before Christmas of 1929, Charles finally decided to pay for a family portrait because he knew he wasn't going to need the money. On Christmas afternoon, the father hid in the barn with a 12-gauge shotgun and lay in wait for his daughters, Carrie, front row, far right, and Mabel, front row, second from left, as they walked to their uncle's house. He blasted them at point-blank range, then finished them off with the butt of the gun. Stalking back to the house, he gunned down his wife, Fanny, back row, standing far right, on the front porch. Then he charged into his own home as an invader. As Marie screamed, he shot her in cold blood, along with his unborn child or grandchild. The small boys, James, front row far left, and Raymond, front row second from right, ran for cover, but Charles hunted them down in a macabre game of hide-and-seek. Last was baby Mary Lowe, in Fanny's arms top right. He finished her off without wasting a bullet, and then killed himself in the woods shortly thereafter. The only survivor was his son Arthur Lawson, rear row, far left, who was out of the house at the time. Within 7 days, a standard portrait had become the last record of a family about to be destroyed by its deranged patriarch. Mount St. Helens. The photo quality here looks awful, like the above images were shot on an early flip phone. At first glance, it seems nothing more than someone's grainy camping photography, perhaps depicting some bad weather. In reality though, the camera was top notch, and it was capturing some of the worst weather in Washington state history. In 1980, Mount St. Helens in the southwestern part of the state was a slumbering volcano that had decided to stop hitting snooze. It rumbled and smoldered ominously for months on end, yet some people remained in harm's way. Local residents refused to evacuate. Geologists and volcanologists, despite their misgivings, stayed close by to monitor activity, and some photographers eager to document the foreboding phenomena crept closer to the stirring giant. One of these was Robert Landsberg. A freelancer supporting National Geographic, Landsberg was on the latest of numerous trips to the mountain. His morning on May 18 began like any other. Walking in his serene campsite, he found a good vista and started snapping photos. But at 8:32 a.m., everything changed. A 5.1 magnitude earthquake sent a terrifying landslide down the side of the mountain. Moments later, an eruption of magma, volcanic gas and ash followed, a 1-2 punch of rapidly approaching terror. Simultaneously enthralled and horrified, Landsberg kept shooting. It didn't take long for him to realize that he could never outrun the onrushing blast. Resigning himself to his fate, Landsberg calmly finished his work, dismounted the camera from the tripod, stuffed it into his backpack, and then laid down atop his equipment. His body would protect the precious film. 57 people died that day, Landsberg among them, but his jaw-dropping final photographs all survived. The Twin Towers. September 11, 2001 has passed into the history books, but each living witness has had the day's events burned into his or her memory. The world changed for many. Western countries awoke to modern realities of terrorism. Approximately 3,000 innocent lives ended, and the loss reverberated throughout countless families, friendships, and workplaces. Most visibly, New York City's iconic skyline was forever altered. Photographer David Monderer loved that skyline, and he'd been waiting nearly a month to do it justice with a good photo. The sunny Tuesday morning offered the perfect opportunity. He strolled out onto the Manhattan Bridge walkway, aimed, and took this following shot. The photo that you are viewing right now is one of the very last to show the Twin Towers as they were. Looking at the image, it is easy to imagine the activities inside. People beginning their daily routines, fortifying themselves with coffee for the first morning meetings. They had no idea that the cloudless blue sky above already held two airlines winging their way closer, bearing a deadly destiny. Timothy Treadwell. The following picture that we see is from 2003, and it shows a happy couple perched on the pontoon of a seaplane, obviously ready to enjoy a wilderness adventure. Unfortunately though, they get more than they bargained for. The gentleman's name is Timothy Treadwell, a zealous environmentalist. He had travelled to Katmai National Park with his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, for a pet project, documenting grizzly bears. Treadwell held a strong affection for the beasts and felt them to be kindred spirits. It amounted to a more extreme version of Christopher McCandless's desire to be one with nature. While McCandless was willing to hunt to survive, Treadwell expected to coexist peacefully with all the animals he encountered. Previous visits had convinced him that the bears would become used to his presence, see him as non-threatening, and leave him alone. Unfortunately though, he was tragically mistaken. On October the 6th of 2003, scant days after this picture was taken, Treadwell and his girlfriend's campsite was invaded by a hungry brown bear. First Treadwell, then his girlfriend, were mauled by the remorseless attacker. They may have been still alive when the animal began devouring them. This image is the last known picture of the couple, but it's not the last record. Treadwell's video camera was still running when the attack took place. Only the audio was captured, a flurry of agonized cries and dying screams. Fair warning though, it's quite graphical.